Look at this city: gold temples, glass towers, highway overpasses stacked 3 levels high, a middle class that clawed its way up from nothing, factories that once made Thailand the envy of Southeast Asia. Now look at the data: 1.6% growth in 2026. That is not a recession, it is something worse. It is a country that has stopped moving and doesn't know it yet. This is the story of how Thailand, once the most promising economy in mainland Southeast Asia, walked straight into a trap it built for itself. 3 traps, actually. And the terrifying part, it may already be too late to escape all 3. Start with the factories. Because for 30 years, Thailand had one identity on the global stage: cars, Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Mitsubishi. They didn't just sell into Thailand, they built their Asian supply chains around it: Rayong, Chonburi, Samut Prakan. By the 2000s, Thailand was producing nearly 2 million vehicles a year. It was the Detroit of Asia. Then BYD arrived. Not with a car, with a paradigm shift. The internal combustion engine, the entire reason those Japanese supply chains existed, was being replaced. And Thai suppliers had spent decades making exhaust systems, engine blocks, and transmission parts. None of those go in an EV. So the orders slowed, the shifts got shorter, the overtime disappeared. This is what industrial displacement looks like from the inside. Not explosions, not collapse, just silence. Thailand has EV ambitions. The government has announced targets. Some Chinese brands are even assembling locally. But there is a difference between assembling someone else's cars and owning the supply chain. Right now, Thailand is doing the first. It has not figured out the second. Then came the trade shock. Washington tightened scrutiny on Chinese transshipment routes through Southeast Asia. Thailand had quietly benefited for years from being a gray zone corridor. Chinese components re-exported with Southeast Asian paperwork. That gray zone is closing. The 36% tariff threat was reduced to 19%. But the message was clear. The rules changed, and the hidden growth it provided vanished with them. Tourism was supposed to compensate. Before the pandemic, Thailand's beaches, temples, hospitals, and malls made it one of the world's great tourism economies. But by 2026, the recovery remains incomplete. The IMF specifically flags the slower rebound in foreign arrivals as a drag on the economy. And the deeper problem isn't visibility. Everyone knows Thailand. The problem is value. The country that once felt cheap now competes with Vietnam, the Philippines, Indonesia, Cambodia. Destinations that offer beaches and food and nightlife at lower cost. The engines are not broken, they are seizing, slowly, mechanically, predictably. Now, here is the part that doesn't make the headlines. While the factories were slowing, Thai households were quietly loading up on debt. Household debt in Thailand now sits at roughly 87% of GDP. That is not a developing economy number. That is a number you see in countries that have already gotten rich. Thailand has not gotten rich. Here is how the trap works. Wages didn't rise fast enough, so families borrowed. They borrowed for cars, appliances, school fees, medical bills. Policymakers saw consumption slowing and made credit cheaper. Cheaper credit meant more borrowing. More borrowing meant more debt, and more debt means the next shock hits harder. It is a loop, and Thailand is inside it. The 1997 Asian financial crisis matters here, not as history, but as psychology. Before the crash, Thailand was on a direct path toward high-income status. Capital poured in, property boomed, the baht looked stable, then the model cracked. Thailand recovered, but it recovered into caution. Risk appetite weakened. Growth never fully returned to its pre-crisis trajectory. And when wages stagnated in the years that followed, debt became the substitute for prosperity. The most damaging part is that much of this debt isn't productive. It isn't financing startups or new industrial capacity. It is financing yesterday's consumption. Cars, appliances, daily expenses. Families aren't building wealth, they are servicing the past. And underneath the debt story is another, quieter one. Thailand's economy is dominated by a small number of conglomerates in retail, energy, alcohol, agriculture, telecoms, real estate. They are efficient. They are politically connected. They have been around for decades. But when a handful of groups control the shelves, the land, and the capital, the next generation of entrepreneurs doesn't get a runway. Innovation doesn't die in Thailand, it migrates. The startup that could have disrupted Thai retail moves to Singapore. The engineer that could have built an advanced manufacturing firm goes to Malaysia. The capital that could have funded the next industrial wave flows into condominium towers. A country can look busy, full of cranes and malls, while quietly hollowing out. But the most irreversible part of Thailand's crisis isn't the factories, it isn't the debt, it is the clock. Thailand is aging before it is rich. Its fertility rate has collapsed to somewhere around 1.0 to 1.3, far below the 2.1 needed to replace the population. Its workforce is shrinking. Its median age is rising fast. And this is not a future problem. It is already here. Think about what a young economy gives you. Every year brings more workers, more consumers, more taxpayers, more families forming households. In an aging economy, the equation reverses. Fewer workers support more retirees. Fewer children mean fewer future consumers. Fewer taxpayers fund more healthcare. The dependency ratio climbs, and Thailand's pension and welfare systems were never built for a society where a third of the population could soon be elderly. The cause is not mysterious. Consider the Bangkok office worker in her early 30s. University degree, mid-level job. Her rent takes 35% of her salary. Her car loan takes another 15%. She sends money to her parents every month because their pension doesn't stretch far enough. And every year she does the math on having a child. Every year the math doesn't work. She is not unusual. She is the norm. And when millions of people make the same rational decision simultaneously, independently, the birth rate doesn't slow. It collapses. Thailand has tried to compensate with migrant labor from Myanmar, Cambodia, and Laos. It has worked for construction sites, farms, kitchens. But Thailand doesn't just need bodies. It needs engineers, coders, chip designers, biotech researchers, advanced manufacturing managers, and this is where the system completely fails. Rigid citizenship pathways, uneven English proficiency, declining university rankings, political uncertainty. Thailand can import workers for the jobs it already has. It cannot attract the talent needed for the jobs it needs to create. Too few babies, too much debt, too little skilled immigration, too little time, which brings us to Vietnam, because the contrast is no longer symbolic, it is operational. Vietnam is becoming what Thailand used to be, the default mainland Southeast Asian growth story. Its labor force is younger, its wages are more competitive, its industrial parks are absorbing supply chains from South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, and the United States that no longer want to sit inside China. But here's the point that gets missed. Vietnam isn't just cheaper than Thailand, it is earlier in the cycle. For a manufacturer thinking in 10-year horizons, a younger country offers a longer runway. More workers entering the labor force, more households forming, more political urgency around industrialization. Thailand is at the end of that runway. Its roads are better, its hospitals stronger, its tourism brand global. But maturity became rigidity. Vietnam still has real problems. Infrastructure bottlenecks, corruption risks, rising wages, energy constraints, bureaucratic friction, but it has something Thailand lacks: direction. A clearer strategic chain of command. Thailand's political system has repeatedly interrupted long-term planning. Since 2001, every government connected to the Shinawatra movement has been removed by courts, by coups, by institutional maneuvering. For investors making decade-long bets on industrial transformation, but it cannot make Thailand rich. The reforms that could change the trajectory are not a mystery. Break up the monopolies, deleverage households without crushing demand, retrain auto workers for electric and digital industries, open real pathways for skilled immigration, rebuild education around productivity rather than credentials. None of this is impossible, but all of it is politically difficult. And Thailand's deepest problem is that the reforms it needs are precisely the reforms its power structure has spent decades preventing. Vietnam is industrializing while it is still young. Thailand is aging while it is still indebted. The land of smiles still has wealth, beauty, infrastructure, and global recognition. But in economics, the one resource you cannot borrow, print, or negotiate is time. And Thailand is running out.